Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here. It's just amazing to come halfway around the world and be able to show these little projects that I've done. So I started with the most unremarkable visual that I could possibly put on the screen, but it's actually this line on a page that actually sparked all of, or a lot of the projects I'm going to talk about today. First, I just want to talk a little bit about myself. This is my route through New York. I live in Brooklyn. And I work at Google Creative Lab there in Manhattan. And I'm going to talk both about what I do at home and what I do at work and how those two kind of blend together. And kind of what I think about on the subway. This is a little map of my daily commute. And what I think about when I'm in between these two worlds. So this is a question I get a lot, and it's actually really hard to answer, so I tried making a little diagram. I realized that when I was a kid, it was actually a lot easier to answer this question. I learned viola when I was at a young age, and I kept playing music and started writing my own music. Obviously, like everyone, I learned to draw, and I learned computer programming also along the way. But you realize that as you go into working, you have to be more succinct about it. So over time, I've dabbled in all these titles. I was doing some things that sort of blended design and coding, and also doing composition and music. And I've sort of given up trying to answer this question, and above all, the thing that I just love most is just making things and always having my hands in a project, and never just giving up that love of being able to actually just sit down and craft something, whether it's involves music design or any of all of the above. So back to this line on a page, a little bit of music geek here. This appeals to me when you think about seeing sound. Strings are actually a design that nature kind of gave us for free, and it's the most beautiful design ever, because if you pretend that this line is a string that you could reach out and pluck. I play viola, so I'm kind of used to the way that these strings just operate under my hands, and there's a beautiful math behind it, because if you pluck it with no fingers held down, you see it vibrating as a certain note. But if you cut it in half, it actually goes up a perfect octave. And if you cut it in thirds, it goes up a fifth. And it sort of forms the basis of what we call Western music and musical scales. And even if you're not a musician, you'd be able to tell that there's this kind of beautiful math in nature, and the way that the sounds fall on our eardrums. We're just so in sync with the way that these sound waves move through the air. And I just think it's the most beautiful grid that just kind of came designed for free, just with the way that that nature's built. So I went to this line, and my friend and I were sitting around, and we were thinking, well, what if you could actually draw a line on a page and actually just instantly be able to reach out and pluck it? So you'd be able to actually just start to see what musical intervals look like, and you'd also be able to see your drawings come to life and see what your drawings might sound like. So over the next few weekends, I started coding up this prototype where you could actually draw lines on pages and see them come to life. As a musician, this was actually a really frustrating thing, because you couldn't actually draw the notes that you wanted, so it became a very unpredictable but fun thing where I just drew things and tried to improvise compositions around the lines I had drawn on the page. So as you'll see, longer strings form lower notes, just like they would, and higher strings form higher notes. And of course, you can think more the other way. What does a drawing feel like? Like, what is the sound of a scribble? Thank you. So you'll see I'm filling up this inkwell over here. It was a little UI thing that I came up with, but I wanted to have as little computer interface on this thing as possible, and that's something I'll talk more about later. This was one of those happy moments that I just happened to draw the right lengths, that it kind of felt like a song had evolved out of this thing. So I took this idea and I wanted to see if there's a way to get rid of the computer even more. And there's this event in New York called Music Hack Day where a bunch of programmers get together and just see what experiments they could hack together in 24 hours. So my idea was, well, what if I could actually not use a mouse or not use a computer and just use your hands and actually just be able to draw lines in the air, or use your body and be able to play these things. So I met up with a couple programmers who were even more advanced than I was, and they were just really brilliant guys. And over the course of 24 hours, Aiden and Tyler and I got some basic prototypes going. So as you can see, you can play directly with your hands with no computer interface. You stand in front of the camera and it just kind of figures out where your hands are. But more exciting to me was to be able to instantly draw lines in the air and just instantly be able to grab them. And of course, multiple people can play this instrument at once. So that was just a little sketch that we came up with, and we'll see what we can build out of that. But I just moved to New York at the time, and I was trying to see, now that I have this little Lego piece of this string coded and built, what else could I build with this little line on a page? And I was surrounded by New York subway maps. My friend had a giant print of the classic 1978 Vignelli map on his wall, and I was like, oh, it's such a beautiful geometric creation of representing the subway system. And I started to think about, well, what if I could actually reach out and just pluck those strings as if they were a musical instrument? What would that sound like? I found this photo on Flickr where other people, I guess it's still hiding underneath old subway maps, new subway maps, which I kind of love. And I wanted to take it a step further, though, and think about, what if it wasn't me playing the subway map, but it was actually the subway playing itself? So I quickly Googled MTA subway schedule, and I stumbled across the data, which is actually available as just a zip file you could just grab and download to your computer. This is kind of what it looks like to a computer, figuring out what time trains leave. And over the next couple months, I built this piece which lives at mta.me. And the way it works is when you first visit, it uses your current time, and it figures out what trains have left at that time, and it begins to draw the subway map in your computer browser. And when the trains actually cross each other's lines, they'll actually start playing melodies. So it's a little bit of a just experiment of what it might sound like if it came to life. So I'll let it play for a little bit. After 6 p.m. it goes dark. And of course, I didn't want people to have to wait there for 24 hours to see the whole thing unfold, so it kind of gradually accelerates, and you enter this sort of dreamlike world where you see a fast-forwarded version of what the subway looks like over the course of 24 hours. A little interesting problem here was that some trains that were on that 70s map no longer existed. So in my world, I just gave them a random schedule to come out around midnight as if they're like ghost trains just coming back. And I always make sure to tell people to not try to follow this as a legitimate subway schedule, because the certain creative liberties have been taken to kind of make it a calming musical experience. And so you can let that run on loop at mta.me. Thank you. So I started to think about that project where I was taking a visual source that has no inherent musical value to it and trying to draw music from it. And you end up taking a lot of liberties, like that one for musical people in the audience. Well, you'll note that I just kind of chose a major scale to make it kind of feel calming. And that's sort of one of my creative drives from it was I wanted to take something that was chaotic, just a normal commute, and actually try to make it feel sort of calming and beautiful. And for the next project, I wanted to kind of go the other way and take a beautiful piece of music, in this case the Bach cello suites, and see if I could draw visuals from that. And when you think about the famous cello suites, when you're asked to visualize it, most people would probably pick notes on a page. And notes on a page are really just a written language for music. They're just like a convenient way that we've managed to pass music around and conserve it through the generations. But now that I had this little Lego piece of a string on a page, I was starting to think about what if, is there a more natural way to actually visualize what the Bach cello suites would look like if you could actually see it performed by nature? So I looked up, the data for the Bach cello suites. This is what it looks like to a computer, and I started to think about what if I could draw one line for every note and group it in musical phrases in groups of 8, just like this. And you can imagine if you had a magical harp in front of you that could gradually morph strings one by one, you could literally have like a monkey just pawing the harp, and it would actually just morph in front of you, and you could actually play the cello suites. So over time, each string would morph to form that musical phrase. So what happens is it becomes a way to visualize the piece. Instead of notes on a page, you're seeing each musical phrase performed in front of you. So I'm just going to let this play out. I added a little tuning sequence in the beginning. I felt like it needed it, so you really felt like the strings were connected to what you're hearing. That's the piece. So if you want to play with that more, you can go to this website and you can actually grab the little musical nubs and kind of mess with the machine and feel it really actually under your fingers. Now kind of going more into how I bring these ideas into what I do at Google Creative Lab. At the time I had just started at Google, so one of the first places that I immediately thought to bring this was obviously, well, what if you could actually turn the Google logo into a musical instrument? And the amazing thing about having this little string coded already was I just quickly mock this up in Illustrator illustrator, and you could instantly be able to grab it and pluck it. And you know, when you pitch an idea, the magic of having an interactive prototype is it's just monumental. So I coded this tiny little. It was a little bit of a joke because I knew not all of this was possible. But of course, even the search box being pluckable. One of the fun things I thought was that, you know, Google is one of these companies that just lets you mess with their logo and isn't precious about it. So letting users actually distort it. So this was a little prototype I went to them with, and everything was a team effort there. Joey, Ryan, and Chris, we sort of formed a tiny little team, and we went through a ton of design iterations and coding experiments, and eventually I went home and I recorded some guitar samples at home, and eventually it evolved and just lined up perfectly with the Les Paul's celebration. So it evolved into this project. I have a short little video just to summarize how this all came together. Thanks. So, thank you. So it's obviously really incredible, you know, the scope of those types of projects are just unbelievable, but I love these little moments that I found online. This was one thing where a physics teacher had kind of used the doodle as a little lesson to teach his class about music physics, and it was kind of like he took the doodle and put it under a microscope and screen captured it to see if the strings were oscillating in an interesting way, and he reverse engineered and figured out that it was sort of following a natural sine wave, although he noted that I took a lot of liberties because computers aren't really fast enough to keep up with the way that how quickly strings actually vibrate in real life. But one of the really interesting things to me was that even though it has a giant record button on there, there was no recording. There was no sound actually recorded. And it was actually past the entire song, when you recorded a song, was just recorded by the computer as, you know, timing. And the entire thing, when you copy-pasted it to a friend, was actually all written in the browser bar of your up top there. And so when you were pasting, you were literally pasting the entire sheet music for your little tune that you had played. And the funny thing is, you know, we take music recording for granted right now, ever since we've been able to start carving sound into physical objects, that this is sort of an older way of passing music around, you know, through musical notation. And this is kind of like the computer's way of figuring out musical notation that could pass between computers all around the world. What was really interesting to me, though, was that outside of the US, where we couldn't let people actually record music initially, this sort of started happening around the world. And when I woke up and saw all these tweets of these numerical values in languages I couldn't even understand, you immediately understood that people were teaching each other songs. And this made me really happy because it reminded me that before we could record music, the only way to share information was to literally sit down and play the song for the next person and hope that that person went to another town and played the song for that person. And we had sort of stumbled on creating this old-fashioned way of sharing music just by limiting the users and not letting them actually be able to record physical audio. So we get this question a lot, so I'll just talk a little bit about what Google Creative Lab is. It's pretty basic. We're a group of designers, writers, creative technologists, filmmakers, producers, marketing managers, our leaders, and so my coworker who sits next to me put these amazing slides together. My favorite moment is just that we work much more like this, where our hierarchy really breaks down, and we also work a lot with friends at outside agencies, and of course with our fellow Googlers. But it's really it's a great chaotic and inspiring atmosphere to be in. And above all, I feel like I just share a common DNA with the group because above all, we're really about making things and just getting our hands dirty and just creating things, whether it's in code or in film or in design. So over the past year and a half, I've actually been working on Project Glass. I was really excited because I had these slides in my presentation, but it launched just a week before I came out with the latest thing we've been working on. And just in case it didn't launch, I would have had to delete the rest of these slides from my presentation. So I'm glad to be able to talk a little bit about this today. So almost 2 years ago, the Glass team out in California came to us, and at the time it was looking a lot more like this. It was just a prototype, and it was just like a little seed of an idea, and it was sort of the simplest brief in the world. It was like, we're making glasses. Do you want to help in some way? And the way that we think, we sort of have this really reversed way of going about some projects. I would think that this is how a company would normally make a product. They'd invent something, and then a long time later they'd make a commercial for it. But we sort of work like this, where we kind of just jump right to the end, right to the shiny thing, and just start making the commercial for it. Because in some ways it's this great reality check of like, all right, we're no longer in our bubble. Let's pretend we have to tell the world about this thing and tell the person on the subway next to you about this thing. When you make a commercial, that's really the mindset that you're in, and let that influence the invention of it. And then maybe that'll inspire more things, and we get this great cycle back and forth. So it was the most daunting brief because this is, wearable computing is something that has decades of brilliant minds behind it, people who have been like working on this for ages. And I was, just kind of dropped into this thing, and as a designer and as a general creative, how do you even start? And if you were to, read all the books, you'd be months into this thing. And we kind of just said, there's no way we're going to be able to catch up. Let's just kind of start by drawing something, like you would in a sketch pad. And so one other UI designer, John Chanko, and I were just sitting around, and we just kind of drew a circle on a page, and we were like, well, maybe. At the time, information is getting smaller and smaller, and people want less and less. So maybe what if it was just a nugget? And we liked the way that this circle kind of just felt like a nugget of information. And we kind of went, what if little bits of information just kind of floated all around you instead of being contained into like just, the interfaces here. And we also wanted to have as little information as possible around you. At the time, there was a lot of, mock-ups of the future where you're kind of just swimming through information all the time. And we kind of wanted to make something that showed up, but then like kind of got out of the way so that you could just live your life when you didn't need it. And we made this next video just totally as a little sketch. We assembled just a tiny little team over there. And it was actually originally just intended just to show, just as a little bit of inspiration internally. We had a couple writers, a couple designers, and we just kind of sat around a table and just sketched up a little narrative. The whole thing end to end was maybe only a couple weeks, and we pretty much had a finished video, and we polished it a little bit. The thing I loved the most, though, was my friend, too, who I work with a lot. He was the entire film crew. He literally mounted a camera to his head and ran around the city of New York and just shot it. He didn't wait for official crews to come and light everything, and this kind of rough, rugged quality was what I loved most about the project.
Meet me in front of Strand Books at 2. Oh man, really? Hey there, guy. Hey there, little guy. Sweet. Remind me to buy tickets for Monsieur Gano tonight. Where's the music section? Oh, yes, this is it. Paul here yet? Huh. Hey, dude. How's it going?
Want to go check out that new place I was telling you about?
Sure.
This truck's really good.
Hey, just a second. Cool.
Good to see you again.
Thanks, man.
Just got a new place in Alphabet City.
See you, dude. Whoa, cool. Take a photo of this. Share it to my circles. Oh, I'm running late. Music, stop.
Hi, what's up?
Hey,
Hey.
you want to say something cool?
Yeah, sure. Is that a ukulele?
Yep. Okay, here goes.
That's beautiful.
So, that was just like a really exciting just kind of concept sketch that we had thrown together, and the project continued to evolve over the next year. And the most exciting thing was, though, that the Glass team invited me and a whole bunch of other UI designers from around the company to kind of work with them on coming up with ideas of the real interface. That one we were in just sort of a little bit of la la land and just being able to dream up anything. But now that we're getting down to it, like there are certain pixels that we have to draw to the device, and what should that be? And it's one of the most exciting design projects to ever be able to work on. One of the principles that I got really excited about early on when we started thinking about the real UI design of the thing was, to me, I think computers are really good at multitasking because that's what they're meant to do. And as a result, I think people, when you sit at a computer, we've designed these interfaces that think that people are good at multitasking, and we think we're good at it, but I actually think we're not. I feel like I'm not as good at it as I'm supposed to be. And I think, coming back to reducing the amount of cognitive overload and visual overload that you have at any one time is just a really important thing to me. And I think designing interfaces can help us to do that more. I also think, reducing is something that, in our circles when we talk, designers kind of always get blamed for just wanting to simplify and be minimal. But to me, it's not a designer need, but it's sort of a human need that I find myself in, just having less and less at any given time. So when we started thinking about the interface, we really wanted to reduce things and just show you the bits of information, or just show you the one thing that you're really working on at that time when you're recording a video. And this idea is something that's being talked about a lot now everywhere, of just having less and less user interface. And especially one of the most exciting things about working on Glass is that the engineers just are coming up with things that kind of give the designers, it kind of takes their job away, because when they come up with making voice work, suddenly you can just get rid of like half of the interface, and just being able to simply ask how long is the Brooklyn Bridge, and getting an answer that way, and just using your natural input techniques, and saying how do you say half a pound in Chinese, and getting a translation for that. And I started to think about, what does that phrase "no UI" really mean? And when I think about the viola, it's a user interface, and it's actually a really complicated user interface. You put some fingers here, you have to hold the bow a certain way, and the tuning pegs. But when you see a person playing a musical instrument, you don't feel like they're using an interface. And I think the reason for that is because it becomes so natural and so ingrained in the body that it just feels like an extension of themselves. So you kind of forget that's there, and it just seems like it's their body doing what it's naturally meant to do. And when I think about it, strings are even more of a natural interface that even a baby can understand, that they just know to reach out and pluck, and it's just a natural thing that exists in the world. So I think when the goal of a lot of these projects is to get back to a human user interface, and just the thing that excites me the most is that when you even surrounded by all this engineering brilliance at Google, computers are just finally catching up with being able to do the things that we've always been able naturally to do, and with just so much time, they will finally be able to understand us in many ways. So I just wanted to finish by telling you a little bit and giving you a little bit of a peek inside of the Creative Lab. This last video that we just released last week, we've been working on over the past year on and off, and this is our workspace. That's where I sit, the empty chair. I ran up to take this photo. But this project was really exciting to me because over here, two of my coworkers, Richard and Chris, were literally working directly with the Glass team and helping to design the pixels on the interface. Meanwhile, we had two filmmakers over here making the commercial for the thing. So that diagram that I showed before was literally like coming to life right in this little space where they would be inventing a new feature or like coming up with a new design and showing it to our filmmakers, and they'd be incorporating it into the final shiny thing. But then it would also go the other way where the video of the thing and showing it come to life, it just takes wireframes and flat graphics to a whole new level, and you could just play a video for someone and they suddenly can enter this dreamlike state where they understand what it will literally feel like, and it's just a magical experience to be able to sit right there and have this whole cycle going around. So I'm just going to finish up by playing this last video that we're just really excited to share, and I'd love to talk to everyone here about, so feel free to come and find me about any of these projects, my personal work or the Google work, and thanks very much.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
This is it. We're on in 2 minutes.
Okay, Glass, hang out with the flying club.
Google photos of tiger heads. You ready? You ready?
Right there. Okay, Glass, take a picture.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
This is it. We're on in 2 minutes.
Okay, Glass, hang out with the flying club.
Google photos of tiger heads. You ready? You ready?
Right there. Okay, Glass, take a picture.
Holy sh**, that is awesome.
So thanks so much for doing this. This has just been tremendously fun, and come and find me afterwards to talk more. Thanks.